All right, guys, so you guys have worked with your groups. You have reviewed the primary, well, they're really all primary documents, frankly, but let's get started with the first one. I'm going to hit refresh to see if there's anything to do. Okay, group one, Roman, Frankie, and Bowden. Bowden, okay. All right, what do we got? Everyone, go on.
You said the populace in the Florida capital at the time would cause them to live disasters like this to divine providence.
Okay. So yeah, all right, look, so obviously you can glean from what's being written. Everyone, guys, shh. All right, so you can glean from what's being written that the church and religion and like is a very dominating element of the worldview, right? Another thing I was kind of hoping to find was the idea that this is coming from the East, right? That there's conversation, there's rumors traveling back to them that this is coming from further eastern lands and has already caused decimation out there, and slowly it's reaching us, right? Okay, and what about the second document?
So from what I see that at first they originally didn't believe it wasn't that much of a threat because it seemed like they didn't respond to it urgently. At first they didn't say that immediately quarantining people, and they didn't do like any testing to see if it was transmittable. They just assumed. I'm guessing they just assumed that it didn't transmit from person to person.
Right.
But I believe sometime later they did realize it. That originally started from fish markets and markets where people were selling like live animals.
Right.
And it's just that started something.
Right. So initial news reports are sort of downplaying its significance, but also it means that maybe they didn't know.
Yeah,
right. Like it's not really clear. It also can sort of tell you another something. Like it's a New York Times article, but it's relying upon information being given by the Chinese government.
Yeah.
Right.
They are pretty secretive about things. So.
Exactly. I was going to say like.
So we may not. So they may be hiding.
Also, in terms of like the future, right? Like when they rely on current documents, like you could make the argument that there's such an infinite amount of sources nowadays, like news, media, internet, television, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. But like, if you were to try and write a history based on those, like, what would you believe?
Yeah.
Right? Like, could you just take everything at face value because things contradict each other all the time?
Yeah.
Right? So a history written 10 or 20 years later is going to have the sort of the value of hindsight, right? Okay, let's move on to the next one because we've got limits. We've got time limits. Let's move on.
You need to refresh.
I will refresh it. Let's do it. Group 2. Everyone, come on.
The contemporary article suggests that society was relatively quick about closing their borders to prevent the spread of COVID-19. One of the difficulties was the European countries weren't always on the same page. At the same time, specifically about reopening the borders, travel restrictions prevented sick people from entering foreigners. Just as people in modern day experience heavy border restrictions. In 189 countries, similar to the Black Plague's purgatory of impurities, the coronavirus pandemic led to isolation and heavy travel restrictions to prevent
The spread of the disease.
Right.
For
Okay.
people, this meant separation of families and just division, like lack of communication.
Right, so I mean, here we see a very direct parallel, right? Like, there's this sort of knee-jerk reaction, like, okay, we'll look to explanations, but in the meantime, get out. Like, in the meantime, like, just stay where you are, don't go anywhere else. Our city is our city, foreigners, xenophobia, right? Like this whole idea, right? It's a pretty universal reaction. Let's move on, because again, we've got very strict time limits. Group number 3. Group 3, in pink, lovely, go on. I can. Is that reloaded? Okay, let's go. Group 3, let's go. Quick.
Alright, so what is the costume?
Yeah.
Should suggest about events in society at the time. The photo shows the symptoms of the Black Plague, starting with boils and eventually turning to black blotches spreading all over your body. People in the society were most likely afraid since this happened. This plague was spread so fast, and the virus itself was deadly.
looked at a contemporary article just about society's reaction to COVID-19. So basically the articles were very vague about the symptoms of COVID-19, so it could have been mistaken for anything else. This probably made people afraid of the virus, or they might have mistaken it for something else, and so they kind of portrayed it as more of a common cold, but then other times they would portray it as like kidney failure and like other death.
Right.
For the last question, you said that the society, well, this one is very similar in those scenarios, and these were very scenarios because of the side effects and the infection of the listeners.
Right. I think you hit the nail pretty much directly on the head. You know, what was very special and specific, and the reason why the Black Plague is called the Black Plague is because of these big purplish, blackish blotches that would come on your neck or your arm or wherever, like all over. I had a different whip cut I didn't put up because it's kind of gross, but yeah, I mean, it's very specific. Like, you can't really mistake it for anything else. But if you look at the article 3A, it's saying like, oh, what are the symptoms of COVID? A cough? Like a fever? Like, what doesn't cause a cough? What doesn't cause a fever, right? So in terms of identifying and differentiating it, like, even with 700 years of technology, like, it wasn't super clear what was going on or where it was coming from or how it was different, right? All right, let's go on to group number 4. I have no, this is a good one.
Yeah, we said that the book reveals that in response to the Black Plague and European civilizations, especially highly dense areas like London, fled their homes, fled their cities, fled communities, had transmission rates, and locked themselves up in their own homes, leaving themselves from society, leaving behind their livelihoods, their relationships, their possessions, just to spread the disease. We also said that contemporary data, the census data, suggests that many of these individuals and communities tend to move away from these dense areas, just as in the 14th century to avoid the spread of the disease. Cities such as showed population trends climbing as they migrated either to the suburbs or even areas of the Midwest. And we said lastly that there was lots of areas of responses that communities isolated themselves, especially by migrating out of those areas, marble themselves in their homes. I would argue the response to the Black Plague was more severe, since like itself is far more devastating food. And medical technology of the 14th century was far less advanced, which led to a far more organic response. And we declined to do data, census data, since it's numerical and biased, detailed, and still tracking population migration.
Actually, you raised a really interesting point, and it's almost a tricky one. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Demographic shifts, right? Like, if population density is what's leading towards quick spreading disease, then you find everyone from Fifth Avenue moving out to the Hamptons, right, or the Berkshire, or whatever. Like anyone who had a country house left. I mean, my father did. Yeah.
A good example of migration, specifically in New York, was a lot of older people in Manhattan moved to the Hamptons when
Yeah.
COVID-19 was.
Sure. Well, and also the technology and the ability to work remotely. Like, we're not plowing fields anymore. You know, if you're an attorney and you have to file paperwork in a court and you could do it on your computer, I can be a New York attorney from, you know, Idaho or whatever. Like, you can. So that sort of enabled it in a different way. But people would move either way. It didn't really matter. Let's go on to number 5. We're running short on time. A quick.
Can you reload it, please?
I can. I want to get to 6 real quick, so let's go.
The quote from
Boccaccio.
Boccaccio suggests that at the time all forms of authority and law, like the ministers, were following the purges of the Black Plague. So many people fell ill or died that there was no one left to properly run a society.
Yeah, break down in order, right? So like all the ministerial positions, the officials, etc., they stopped doing their job essentially, right? And then what do we see in a contemporary world? What happened?
Okay. For the contemporary articles, suggests that the society was filled with disease and sick people throughout COVID-19. Major virus outbreak caused inmates to escape. They had to crack stopped cracking down as hard on law because they were afraid of the spread of COVID-19.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to do much because of the virus.
Yeah, prisons literally started closing, right? And cops started being ordered to not arrest for nonviolent crimes. That's, by the way, it's still, like, that's changing a little bit, but that's still kind of the case, right? By the way, there are huge ripple effects from that, like breaking out of theft, breaking out of drug use, right? Like all these things went through the roof, right? Because again, the instrumentalities of the state sort of broke down. Real quick, group 6, let's go.
The gist of our thing is that the connection between the Black Plague and COVID-19 is that they both had a negative impact on society. There was different segments of the population that were driven by hatred or blaming a minority. To the Black Plague, they ostracized society, especially in COVID-19 ostracized the ignorant. So,
Absolutely, very good.